Hello everyone, and welcome to our guide on Samira. This champion is the most unique ADC ever released, and also the most disgusting and will probably be the most hated as well. Riot said they will make sure she's primarily an ADC, and if she's stronger in solo lanes, they will definitely nerf it and fix it. But with our guide, you'll know how to pop off on Samira and know how to deal with her so you don't get run over when she comes out. So let's jump right in and go over her abilities, as they can be a bit confusing at first glance. Samira's passive is a lot more simple than it seems. It's basically a buff that stacks 6 times. Each stack gives her 3.5% movement speed. To stack it, you simply have to damage the enemy. The catch is, you have to damage them with something different than what you did damage with previously. So for example, auto attacking will give you 1 stack. Then you want to use an ability for the second, then you can auto again for a third, etc. 2 autos in a row will only give 1 stack. Also, summoner spells don't count. This is the main part of her passive. The second part of her passive is if she's in melee range, she will use her sword to attack instead, which does bonus magic damage based on the target's missing health. This doesn't do that much damage later on, but is a lot more useful in the early to mid game. And the third part of her passive, which is the first thing that needs to go on this champion because it's way too strong and broken and makes no sense to her kit, is that if a champion is CC'd, Samira can dash into range and auto them, which also knocks them up. So yes, she can dash out of her own range, into range. You can see when Leona stuns the Ziggs here, all I have to do is click him and it jumps me into range and knocks him up. Alright, moving on to her first ability, her Q. It's basically Ezreal Q with shorter range and a shorter cooldown. Minions block it and it doesn't do that much more damage than an auto attack, but it's very good for stacking your passive since you can Q in between almost every auto and ability. It does not apply on hit effects though, like Sheen, and if you're in melee range with Q, she slashes her blade instead, which does the same damage in a cone in front of her. The Q can crit and applies full lifesteal though. Moving on to the next ability now, her W, or sorry to say, is another wind wall. Samira slashes around herself, blocking any projectiles for 1.25 seconds. She slashes twice, once at the start and once at the end, both doing a little bit of damage. You can't use Q while using W, but you can use E. This is useful because both slashes can stack your passive if you use W then E like this. Her next ability, her E, is a dash that does magic damage, gives her an attack speed steroid, and resets on enemy kills or assists. She can use E on enemies and allies. The dash is a fixed distance like Fizz Q, so if you use it right on top of someone, you dash through them. Also, if you use E and Q at the same time, she'll hit everyone in her path with Q by dropping explosives in the E path. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, a sub to the channel would be incredible. Moving on to her ultimate now, which is basically a moving Katarina ult. She does damage to anyone in the radius, including minions, but she can only use it if she has 6 stacks of her passive. The damage from the ability can crit and applies full lifesteal. It can be cancelled with any CC though, and the cherry on top, it doesn't have a cooldown. It will reset your passive back to 0, but if you quickly stack it back up, you can get multiple ults off in a fight, and this ult does an insane amount of damage. Alright, let's get into some real gameplay now. Samira is going to be an ADC, so we're going to go over how to play lane, how to combo, all that good stuff. Samira works best with engaged supports like Leona, Alistar, Nautilus, etc. They synergize extremely well with her passive knockup, and since Samira likes to get in close range, use her sword for the bonus execute damage. But the very first thing you need to get into a habit of doing is using Q in between everything you do. Every time you auto, you should be doing auto Q. The ability is very low mana cost, and by weaving it in between everything, you can stack your passive faster. Once I hit level 2 here, I jump in on Callista using EQ at the same time, giving me the attack speed steroid and putting me in melee range for the sword autos. But these early levels are actually the weakest points in the game for her, so it'll be more about playing around your support's engage. If they land their CC, you can go in confidently. If not, you'll want to sit back a bit. In this clip, my Leona lands her E on the Yuumi, so I click her, which makes me jump into range and knock her up, then auto, Q, auto, E, auto, W, auto to finish her. Making sure to weave in autos and Q to stack my passive. As I turn on the Callista, I'm staying in melee range for 2 reasons. 1, I want the extra damage from my sword, and 2, minions block my ranged Q, but my melee ranged Q hits an area in front of me so the minions won't block it. Once she's low enough to finish, I use EQ, then E again right away, jumping out to safety. Now, like I said, these are actually the weaker parts of the game for her because at level 6 the champion is really unlocked. In this clip, Kindred is ganking bot lane with Leona, and I have about 50% health. I start stacking my passive with autos and Q, then use my W to block Kindred autos so she can't proc her E and finish me. This buys me time for Leona to stun her, and I can dash in with E and finish the kill. My passive is stacked now, and Callista is here, so I turn on my ult and Yeah, her ult does an insane amount of damage, with no cooldown. If you get your stacks up in ult, anything inside will surely die if they can't CC you to cancel it. To show you a small example of the potential the ultimate has, we can break down this clip here. Pantheon and I dive the enemy bot lane duo, and I use my ult to finish Yuumi since it doesn't have a cooldown. Pantheon recalls now, but I decide to stay. The enemy team surrounds me, but I focus on stacking my passive using my W to block Teemo blind and ult him and Kai'Sa getting the first kill. Kai'Sa flashes my EQ, so I flash and finish her off, then start working on stacking my passive again since I saw Echo coming out of base. Once he arrives, I run into the brush in case he used W from out of vision, then use EQ to dash through him, auto to get my last passive stack, then use my ult yet again to kill the Echo and Yuumi. Alright, let's talk about some tips and tricks. So you can see how a big part of playing this champion is getting your stacks up quickly. Now there isn't an optimal combo for this, but a really fast one you can use is as follows. You want to auto, Q auto, W and make sure you're in range for the first W slash, E while using W, second W slash goes off and you can ult from there. That's about as fast as it gets really. It puts you at max stacks with one combo. The hardest part is making sure that your first and second W slash lands and you E in between the two slashes. If you don't E in between, the two slashes will only give one stack. Another trick on this champion is very similar to the trick on Yasuo with his EQ. If you don't know, Yasuo can use his EQ even if his Q cooldown is still 0.5 seconds from coming up. This isn't exactly the same, but basically if you use EQ on Samira when her Q is 0.5 seconds away from being off cooldown, she will use it at the end and it will still hit everything in her path. You don't have to use Q at the start of her E. This is just something that can be very useful if you really need to use the EQ and the Q isn't fully off cooldown yet. Alright, when it comes to team fights, you want to play like a traditional ADC, staying back, focusing one person constantly auto-attacking and using Q, and stacking your passive, until someone gets low enough to finish off and get that reset. If the enemy team clumps, and you have your passive almost stacked like this, that's when you can go for the big AoE ult play. You just have to be careful doing this if they have CC, since it can cancel your ult. So you get the idea, the champion is definitely insane, but she does have some weaknesses and counters. Basically, anything that can engage onto her and lock her down with CC is really good. Think of her as an AD Katarina basically. She has very low range and is squishy. She relies on snowballing and can be bursted down easily if they have a mobility on something like Renekton or Riven. Now let's talk about builds. Samira is weird because she doesn't build like any of the other ADCs. She doesn't make great use of attack speed since she does a lot of damage with abilities and her Q being a 1 second cooldown later basically gives her a free auto in between every auto. So we think her core items will be Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, and Death's Dance in that order. For boots, defensive shoes will work best, like Tabby's or Merc's, as she needs to be close range and can die very fast. After that, the only attack speed item you'll want is a PD for the defensive shield if needed, otherwise Last Whisper if they have a lot of armor, Bloodthirst if you need another shield or more lifesteal, Guardian Angel, etc. It's just situational from there. And for runes, you can run Conqueror, PTA, or Fleet. As of right now, I think Conqueror will be best, but all of them will be viable. Fleet can help against tougher lane matchups. Bloodline is amazing on her since her ultimate and Q apply full lifesteal. The cookies in the inspiration tree make her laning phase a lot stronger, and you don't really want to be buying boots on your first recall, so having the magical shoes is nice. If you want to truly take your lane phase to the next level and learn how to convert leads into easy wins, then you need to check out our site skillcap.com. We have by far the largest catalog of guides on the internet. We've curated them into over 100 epic courses, and we release more than 10 new guides every week. We're so confident you'll improve, you can input your rank before signing up to see where we think you'll climb. If you don't hit that rank while actively using our service, you can claim a refund, so there's no risk. Sign up today to finally get the rank you've always wanted. Alright guys, that's going to bring us to the end of our Samira guide. A lot of you are going to love this champion and a lot of you are going to hate her, but we hope the guide will help everyone. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.